Welcome back to Luxora, where we journey through struggles into light. Today, we're entering into places many never want to talk about. The roots of approval addiction. The places where the longing for validation was planted even before the world had access to us. Because approval addiction rarely starts on Instagram. It starts from childhood, in living rooms, in classrooms, in church pews, in conversations that shaped how we saw ourselves. And sometimes it began in homes that looked perfect but felt like an empty stage where we had to perform to be loved. Now here goes the story of a perfect son. Daniel grew up in a home where achievement was a culture. His father, a retired officer, believed discipline was the backbone of greatness. His mother, a devoted teacher, believed that potentials must be stretched. In Daniel's home, excellence was not encouraged, it was expected. Whenever he came home with anything short of an A, his father would lean over the table and ask him, where did the other marks go to? His mother, on the other hand, would hug him and then quietly whisper into his ears, you can do better next time. That was not abuse. That wasn't neglect in the traditional sense, but it felt heavy. That kind of heaviness that looks like love, yet it feels like pressure. So growing up, Daniel learned to measure love in the currency of achievement. So for him, success meant acceptance and failure meant rejection or silence. And when he didn't meet expectations, the house becomes noticeably quiet. No one scolded him, but no one encouraged him either. And in child logic, silence sounds like disappointment. So he performed and performed and performed. And by 18, Daniel was a golden child, straight A student, class captain, strong athlete, admired, respected. But internally, he felt like a stage with no rest, a soul carrying applause like a burden, a person shaped by the need to be enough. And that is how approval addiction is born. Not with loud trauma, but with quiet pressure. With love that feels like a reward instead of a resting place. Many of us grew up performing long before we ever realized it. We became the responsible one, the intelligent one, the obedient one, the spiritual one, the strong one, and the one who everyone would point at and say, well done. But here is the truth underneath that. Many of us were children trying to earn love from people who didn't know how to give it freely. And so we became adults who were trying to get love, to earn love from everyone around us. That's the empty stage. A place where your value depends on what you do and not who you are. But the truth remains, you were loved even before you performed. Now let's dig deeper into the roots, because the soil determines the fruit. One of the roots of approval addiction is this: homes where love was real but rigid. Now don't get me wrong, so many of us did not grow up in bad homes. Our parents loved us deeply, but their love was structured, disciplined, and achievement driven. They expressed love the only way they knew, and that was by pushing us to become the best. But what they intended as motivation the child inside us misinterpreted as you are only worthy when you succeed. And when love feels conditional, children grow up into adults who struggle endlessly for acceptance because the child in them still feels unworthy without the applause. Now, the second root is unspoken comparison, and that's the silent wound. Comparison is a wound without visible scars. Oh, look at your brother, he doesn't give troubles. Oh, look at your cousin, he just graduated. Oh, can't you see that your mates are all married? Your mates, they're already driving and putting food on their parents' table. What are you waiting for? While these statements may not be intended to harm us, they actually teach a dangerous truth. And you know what that truth is? Someone else is the standard, not you. And so we learn to compete instead of connect, and to prove instead of to become, to chase approval instead of discovering identity. The third root of approval addiction is emotional absence, the invisible form of neglect. Not all neglect is violent, some are silent. Parents may provide everything: school fees, shelter, clothing, but offer no emotional safety, no affirmations, no "I'm proud of you," no comfort for your tears, no celebrations for your small wins. And so silence becomes the loudest voice, and children respond by performing. They think, if I become impressive, someone may notice me. If I stay strong, maybe they will say they are proud of me. And then approval becomes that applause they never had growing up. The next root is the cultural layer. In many African homes, expression is discipline first and affirmation second. Parents equate softness to weakness, and they believe pressure builds strength. They fear praise will make a child complacent, and so they push hard, consistently, until excellence becomes an identity, not an outcome. Many parents never intended to wound. They simply repeated the parenting they received. But like they say, cycles don't break themselves. Approval addiction is often the emotional inheritance passed down from one generation to the next. The next truth is spiritual misinterpretation. Sometimes we even project parental expectations even onto God. We imagine Him as a strict parent with a checklist. We imagine His love fluctuates just like human love. Also imagine He applauds our obedience and withdraws His affection when we fail. Now, we pray to impress and then serve to be accepted. Perform spiritually to feel worthy. One of my favorite scriptures for this particular topic is Matthew chapter 3 verse 17, and it says, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased." Before ministry, before miracles, before fame, before achievement, God declared identity before assignment, beloved before useful, loved before performance. And you know what? Jesus did not work for affirmation. He worked from affirmation. God was showing us the template every child deserves. Love that comes first, love that anchors, love that does not depend on performance. Psalm 103 verse 13 says, "As a father has compassion on his children, so does God have compassion on those who fear Him." Now, contrast that with earthly parenting. Sometimes strict, sometimes inconsistent, sometimes emotionally distant. But God says, "I don't love like that. I am not your earthly reference. I am your heavenly redefinition." You don't earn God's love, you inherit it. And so years later, Daniel found himself exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally. The responsible one, the impressive one, but deep down, he felt empty. And then one of those days during his counseling session, his therapist asked, "Who are you when no one is clapping?" Daniel was silent, completely silent, because performance had become his identity, and without performance, he felt like nothing. But that silence became his turning point, not because he had answers, but because he finally faced the truth. He didn't know who he was. And that was the beginning of healing. He learned that boundaries do not mean dishonor, rest does not mean laziness, failure does not mean unworthiness, and that love is not a medal, it's a gift. And just like that, he prayed, not for success, but for clarity, for peace, for a sense of self outside the applause. And slowly he found it, not in people's approval, but in God's affection. So maybe just like Daniel, you grew up performing too. Maybe your childhood was peaceful but pressuring. Maybe love came but on the condition of doing well. Maybe you've been living on that empty stage where applause keeps you alive and silence makes you question your worth. But hear me, you don't need to stay on that stage. You don't need to earn love. You don't need to fight for visibility. You don't need to deserve affection. God is not waiting for you to impress Him. He is waiting for you to rest in Him. You are more than the expectations placed on you, more than the roles you were forced to play, more than the applause you are used to chasing. You are God's beloved child, and you were loved before doing anything worth celebrating. So today, as I step up the empty stage, I untie my identity from applause, I release the pressure to perform for love, I embrace the truth that I am seen, known, and loved just as I am. Before I perform, beyond my failures and despite my fears. Not because I am perfect, but because I am His. And so, if this episode spoke to you, I would love you to share to as many persons as possible. I would also want you to like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification button. And if you have not followed us on our social media platforms, what are you waiting for? Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Luxora Officials. And if you for any reason want to reach out to us, our DMs are open. You can also reach out to us through our email at luxora.officialpage@gmail.com. If you have anything to say, if you have any questions to ask, if you need anyone to talk to, always remember that we are here for you. And this is Luxora.